Hey guys, Alvin here, and welcome back to another episode of my track theory videos. Now, today I want to talk about an event rather than a topic like last week, and I want to talk about the qualifying of the Hungarian Grand Prix last weekend on Saturday. Now, you will want to ask me, Alvin, what is interesting about the qualifying last weekend apart from seeing four Mercedes dominating the qualifying? Yeah, I thought so too, until I see the onboard comparison of Hamilton and Valtteri's, and then I have a different thought, and I'll let you take a look. Now, the first interesting thing that I realized was spotted on Lewis' pole lap onboard, and he's done a very subtle line change on his driving compared to the rest of the field, including his teammates' lap. And here are his onboard footage, and I will let you take a look whether you can spot the difference or not. Have you spotted anything? If no, it's fine. If yes, then congratulations, it will be a bit easier for you to understand what I'm going to talk about next. If no, still, it's fine. I'm going to talk you through the details, and I'll let you know what exactly is going on in this clip right here. Now, the thing that I'm trying to show you in this particular footage here was Lewis' approach to the chicane, especially the second curve. And you can see that he was actually turning very late and almost intentionally avoiding the curb. If we take a look on an onboard comparison between him and Valtteri Bottas, you can see the difference between them in terms of the line approach. Bottas is taking the normal racing line just like everyone else, and meanwhile Hamilton was using a slightly more angular line to exit the corner. Now, if we take a look on Hamilton's pole lap onboard footage again, you can see that he is entering into the corner with a more angular line and choking the wheel into the corner almost to rotate the car out of the corner. Now, I know that you'll be sitting there thinking, what is Hamilton doing? Isn't smoothing the steering control and shorten the racing line basically make the corner straight? Isn't it the fastest way to go around circuit? So if he does so, how the hell did he get the pole lap? Well, good question. That's why I bring some further analysis of their onboard comparison, and I'll let you know what is exactly going on Hamilton's driving.
This bit's really interesting here in turn 8. Lewis doesn't take the curb, Valtteri does. That pushes him out slightly wider. See the steering correction from Valtteri? I'll just wind it there and we're going slow-mo. Subtle steering correction, pushes him out slightly wider, and by the time they get to the next part, Lewis has clearly got more track. He's able to get the car back over to the left-hand side and exit better again and carries that vital momentum you need.
This next part is completely flat before they're also now flat through turn 11 in qualifying. Only the two Mercedes drivers are. So that difference in line you showed us there on the entry to the right-hander carried all the way down till turn 12.
So there is the lap analysis between Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. Now I'm going to tell you why is Lewis using this angular line technique. Why is he doing this? The theory behind this, and what is the benefit of it? Now, that clip you just saw may not make much sense to you since, well, normally you would take the racing line that Valtteri Bottas did and take the entire curve because that saves the distance, and in theory it should be carrying more speed into the corner. But actually, what you saw from the clip just there actually is a very common technique, especially in karting. So here's some onboard footage from my karting practice sessions, and as you can see, I'm actually using the same technique that I've mentioned before, but compared to what Lewis did on his Formula 1 car, it's very subtle because karting have a much lower steering ratio, so the steering action that you're steering here is much more subtle than you see on a Formula 1 car. Now, obviously, it wasn't the best of my driving in the clip that you just saw. The steering input was quite rough and jerky, as I would say. But I decided to go for this clip anyway because this is by far one of the best clips to show you the technique because the steering input was very obvious, and I think personally this is easier for your eyes to see what is going on. Hmm, sounds very interesting. But what exactly is this technique doing, and why was he doing this? What is the need of this anyways? Now that's a very good question. Let me explain. Now, if you have seen a go-kart or have you personally raced one in real life, you know that karting doesn't have a differential on its back. That means that the rear axle is constantly connected. That means the outside wheel and the inside wheel are always spinning at the same speed. But as we all know, the inside wheel always spins less than the outside wheel at the same corner. So if the inside wheel and the outside wheel are forced to spin at the same speed, it will slow the car down in the corner. But because go-karts doesn't pack with its own differential, the drivers have to come up with something else, and that is to intentionally slide the car, create less friction on the rear wheels so the inside and the outside wheel on the rear axle won't interrupt each other in cornering. To put it simply, is to use the natural oversteer on karts to turn the car into the corner. Okay, yeah, it sounds reasonable, but Lewis was driving a Formula One car. Formula One car are very high tech. They are packed with differential for sure, and they're even adjustable in the car. So why does Lewis have to do that? You're right. Normally, yes, he shouldn't be doing that because it actually costs more time when the car have a differential. It will actually just literally just increase the distance on the car traveled, and ultimately it will cost time and even affect the car's momentum in the corner. So he shouldn't be doing that. But when I say normally, which is under the scenario where the car will actually oversteer, understeer, basically all the natural thing that will happen during the course of a lap, especially in qualifying. And in this case, we are talking about the 2020 Mercedes W11. And from what I saw from the last two Grand Prix, well, three Grand Prix in fact, the car's rear grip is just ridiculous. It just doesn't make any sense. The rear just never steps out during the course of a lap. It's just so grippy whenever it's in practice, in qualifying, or in the race. So when you're driving a car that is that grippy on the rear end, and it just won't steps out when you need it to, it's gonna cause a lot of problems. For example, the car will understeers constantly, the rep will drop in slow corners, and when it drops to the point that the engine can't pick up in time, and it's gonna waste more fuel because the car have more load and more drag on the ground. Now obviously that's a very extreme scenario, and Mercedes are not having any kind of balancing issues so far this season, but it's just so obvious that Mercedes have improved this rear end stability. It just have so much grip compared to last year's car. So for that reason, the way that Hamilton adapt to the car's specialty becomes very obvious to our eyes to see. And come to think of it, when you take a look on all the Mercedes pole lap onboards, it is not surprised to see that Hamilton is using a rather odd technique to adapt to the car's specialty. Now, obviously, this is not a sign of Mercedes overdone the car setting because they are meant to set the car more stable and less unpredictable in race scenarios. But when it comes to qualifying, when you have grippy track and a grippy tire, the rear setting becomes a little bit too extreme, and it just grips so well that you have to do something to adapt to it. And to my eyes at least, Hamilton is doing the exact same right here in this clip, using this odd technique to adapt to the car. And I personally think this could be one of the main factors why he won the qualifying in Hungary. Now we've come to the final part of this video, is how to use it. When do you know that you have to use this technique? Now obviously I don't have an exact answer for you because racing are all about those ever-changing conditions, but I would suggest you to test it out in some practice and possibly try to use different cars to test out how the car reacts when you're doing such technique and find out the best time to use it. Personally, I would suggest you can try to use it when you feel like the rear isn't stepping out enough, especially in the cars where it understeers. So that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more of my content, please kindly subscribe to my channel. There will be more of these contents coming up. Take care, have an awesome day, and I'll see you in my next video.